have got two rock stars of the industry who are with us here. Ronan Murphy, co-founder of Getvisibility, and Ronan, put you down there. Mark Brosnan, the CEO of Getvisibility. They've been in the news somewhat, as you'll hear. And next up, Robert Kehoe, Global Director of Technology and Product with SmartTech 24/7, who is just here. And please welcome to the stage the moderator for this venture partner with Shore Valley Capital, the one, the only, DC
Cahalane. There's gonna be a jailbreak somewhere in this town.
Good afternoon, folks. I don't know where to start now here. I suppose we'll start with the boys from Cork. Any news, lads? How the last few days been? Anything interesting happening?
Stressful.
Let me give you a bit of context. My name is DC Cahalane. I'm a partner at Shore Valley Ventures. We are an AI-specific venture capital firm that operates in the UK, Ireland, and Europe. And we were absolutely delighted that over the course of the last while, and specifically at the weekend, one of our very, very first ever investments came to fruition, and that was the sale of Getvisibility to Forcepoint. So, lads, I haven't met you since the news came out. I just want to say personally, congratulations. I had no doubt that it was going to happen, because having watched you guys over the last couple of years, even before I joined Shore Valley Ventures, it was kind of clear that this AI thing was going to be a thing. It was kind of clear that security was going to be a problem, and it was kind of clear that you guys had some inkling of what was going on. Ronan, like, when you started Getvisibility all those years ago, like, did you think the company was going to be the company that it materialized into?
Well, we knew data was a very profound problem, because if you look at everyone in smart tech, I mean, their core mission is to protect organizations, to stop organizations from getting hacked. But when you consider if an organization is a bank or an airport or an oil and gas company, all of the data that they hold and the data that they touch, it's very different. The perspectives and the context of data represent different value to different people. And having the ability to decipher where the value lies is actually an incredibly complicated task. Our head of data science would actually argue that the word accuracy doesn't even exist, because accuracy is almost something, or bias is something that's in the eye of the beholder. So we knew data was a big problem. An even bigger problem to try and solve it and architect capability to fix it. And so I guess we knew if we could get the technology operationalized, then it would be a huge success, which has proven to be correct.
Yep. Mark, I mean, I always think Ronan had the vision, Ronan had the experience. You know, you came along and had to, you know, you came from a background maybe that wasn't as purebred security maybe as Ronan was. Like, was that the same for you? Like, I mean, did you see from day one that data problem that was going to exist? Was it very clear?
Yeah, I mean, I'd spent a lot of time working with data and understanding data and the complexities of the data and looking for semantics. And it was very clear, particularly when GDPR came in, that companies were really going to struggle to understand it and control it. Companies for a long time have been looking to get value from data, but with the evolution of AI and it becoming more open source and processing and cloud compute, it became very apparent that there was going to be very significant challenges in getting the type of controls around it, from my own experience. And myself and Ronan had been chatting a lot, and it really resonated with me in terms of the kind of the problems he was describing with different clients of SmartTech and how they were trying to solve it. Seemed quite antiquated given the way the technology was evolving. So definitely felt like there was a very strong opportunity there 7 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. I suppose the thing that I was always curious about is, you know, when you're a startup company, you know, you have that freedom to explore and experiment. Like, you know, I've noticed over, you know, you've had a very strong relationship with Forcepoint over the years. You know, was it an alignment of ideas? Like, you know, they were obviously a you know, global security giant, you know, when you started working with them. You know, was it immediately apparent like you were going to be good partners? Did they have the same kind of approach as you towards data security?
Yeah, I guess a lot of it sprung out of customers that we were involved with who also had DLP and different types of security. And fundamentally, to have any type of data security program work effectively, whether it be identity access management or encryption or DLP, you really need to understand that data. And we had a lot of customers who were implementing DLP, not just ForcePoint, but other solutions. And we're really struggling to have it effectively operationalized. So we were talking with one company, and they had spent a lot of time, effort, and energy, and they had 300 different DLP rules turned on, and they eventually ended up with one, because every time there was a false positive or false negative, it had to be turned off. So their DLP program became ineffective. And I guess what we'd been doing with the AI in terms of giving the data context, as well as just the kind of the baseline understanding of the data, it started to make it more effective and more efficient. And when you're bringing a technology to another technology and it starts to work together and work better, the relationship obviously naturally flourishes from that point.
Yeah. Ronan, you know, where does it go from now in terms of ForcePoint and Getvisibility? I mean, you know, you've seen over the last while, you know, the ramping up of the whole space around AI and where it fits into cybersecurity. Like, what will the rest of the year be now? Like, are you just going to take it off?
I think it's incredibly exciting. I'll be honest. No, we're back into the thick of it almost immediately. There's a handful of DSPM, data security posture management companies on the market. Typical valuations are in the multiple billion valuations. So I guess as a small Cork-based startup, we were very much, you know, we were lightweights in heavyweight boxing. But we were outperforming our competitors in terms of every benchmark you could imagine, which was hard to believe considering that many of them had raised hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. The reason why ForcePoint was such a synergistic fit for Getvisibility was that they are the original kind of architects in the industry of data security from a hardening perspective at the edge, so DLP and CASB and SASE and all of those tools, but they did lack a lot of the modern AI capabilities, which we had spent a lot of time, energy, and effort in building. And what we had built wasn't, you can't solution that by throwing money at it. It's really a function of time, because to collect the data, to train the data, to build the different iterations of the capability, that became very valuable. ForcePoint did an OEM with us. We very quickly became the fastest growing product line in their portfolio. They built up very substantial revenue on the back of the software. Obviously, over the last couple of weeks, a number of other large global corporations came knocking on the door. So it was time to either cement the relationship or find a new partner.
That's it. Well, again, congratulations, and very topical for what we're talking about. Robert, we'll come to you now. I suppose, you know, I see it every single day. We get a whole bunch of, again, because we only do AI, every company that comes to us has this brilliant new AI technology that they want us to invest in. You know, they talk a lot about the enterprise companies and the trials and the pilots and stuff that they're doing. But it just seems more and more that, you know, during my days selling SaaS software, you know, the security stuff was at the end of the procurement process. You know, you went through a process, at the end they'd check you for security complaints. Now it seems to be it's the first thing in the door. You don't get into the process unless you meet a standard. Like, talk to us about that whole idea of having a data-first approach to, you know, to security, like in a world now where, you know, AI is going to enable so much, unfortunately, so much bad activity as well as the good that it's going to do.
Definitely, like you can see, companies are already like somewhat, I would say, fearful of AI, and I would say rightfully so, because like AI never forgets. And this is maybe like the killer use case for AI, because like previously you had like data kind of like hidden away in databases and disconnected, disparate systems. But now like AI can stitch these things together, and like the kind of use cases, we can't even imagine what they're going to be like in 2 years' time. And in 2 years' time, that AI is still going to know the information that you've like divulged today, either intentionally or accidentally to it. And so like the use cases of how these systems are going to work together are really going to be like a powerful motivator for companies in the future to like have a proper data security program, because they're going to be in a lot of trouble if they don't have a policy, if they don't have like leadership buy-in. I think Ro touched on it very importantly, because culture, you have to have that like data security culture inside your company, that you think first before you click that button, before you start sharing things and before you start oversharing things. I'm sure everybody here, if I ask for hands up, how many people have used ChatGPT? How many people have uploaded a document to ChatGPT? I don't know if anybody would say that they haven't. So these are definitely, data security is like going to be absolutely key for companies if they want to avoid incidents in the coming years.
And Mark, do you think is one of the big challenges here? I mean, just the volume of data that sits inside in companies, and till now, we kind of think maybe a lot of people might have had quite a laissez-faire approach to, what data they're storing, where they're storing it, how they're keeping it. As somebody who had a former career in marketing, every single time we ever did anything with a customer, we asked them for their postal address. In 25 years in marketing, I never posted anything to anyone. Like, is there, in terms of getting started with a kind of a data-first approach, is there a problem in that we might just actually have too much data inside in companies?
Yeah, someone argued never have too much data. I think the key challenge is the multiple different stakeholders, and everybody needs that data for different reasons and would view it differently. I think we're seeing, or what we've seen since ChatGPT hit the headlines, is companies have really started to figure out how they're going to use it now. There was a lot of trial and experimentation. There were definitely figuring out how to use Gen AI for retrieval. And companies now are really starting to focus in on where it's going to deliver business value. So there's a lot of agentic AI, and eventually there'll be a lot of autonomous work done by AI. The problem everybody we talk to faces is they don't know how to think about how to let that AI access the data and how should have access, right? So almost in every conversation we're having at the moment is saying, we have a Gen AI program, we're trying to kick it off. And if you look at something like Microsoft Copilot, you'll select SharePoint, or you can default and select all of your data. And the first question we'll turn around to someone at the other side of the table and say, we're relatively comfortable. I said, well, if we turn it on at this SharePoint site, how do you know that there's not going to be a disciplinary record or a CV or litigation or a salary file? Because once it's ingested by ChatGPT or Copilot, it's now available to everyone in the organization. And people don't have to figure out how to find it or navigate into different folders. You'll say, tell me all of your sensitive information, tell me all of your litigation, and it just pops up. So how do you control what it trains on, who has access to it, how it's disseminated is very, very difficult. So you need to understand the stakeholders, you need to understand the sensitivity, you need to understand who gets to access it, when and what for. And all of that policy work and all of that planning is really, really important. The volume of data is a solved problem. You can get through it and you can understand it. But if you're not giving it the guardrails and the context to understand it properly in relation, as Ronan said, in relation to your business, which is unique and has unique challenges and unique data, it becomes very, very difficult. And that's what we're seeing is companies are now starting to really invest in, Alan Cahalane spoke about it earlier, really invest in understanding the context of that data as the kind of bedrock for your data security program for generative AI.
Yeah. Ronan, I've always kind of taken my steer from a lot of this stuff from you. Do you think, there's obviously the downside of AI when it comes to cyber. There's also the potential upside of it. Are we at a point yet where we know what the winner is? Is it going to be more beneficial or more dangerous for security posture?
Oh, it's a tough question.
The $1 million question.
I think it's honestly, I think it's 50-50. But
yeah.
A thought just struck me, actually. If you were to ask me, up until this point in my life, if you ever asked me a job that I would never do, I would say a CISO. But just given the sheer amount of pressure that CISOs have to wrestle with. But something just struck me. If you told me now a job that I would never take, it would actually be a science fiction writer. Because I think before you've even finished the science fiction book, the pace of innovation of AI will already have surpassed the ending in your novel. So on the back of that, the other job I would definitely not take after a science fiction novelist would be a VC. Because I think you guys have a huge challenge ahead of you, because every time you look at AI now, the commoditization of the capability and the models is really making startups who are coming out with the next best thing almost overnight becoming redundant. So the level of innovation, the scale is fascinating. To answer your question specifically, the AI paradox, will it kill us or will it save us? Who knows?
Yeah. Robert, like I suppose one of the things that we're kind of seeing with, we've seen it with phishing, we're now seeing it with AI. Like, we now see a lot more insider threats rather than traditionally, it was hardening from outside attack and stuff like that. I mean, in terms of kind of insider threats, and I suppose we're kind of covering both like maybe intentional stuff, but also maybe accidental stuff. Like, what should companies be doing? Like, I mean, if there's a few things they can do to harden themselves against that insider threat, like where should they be starting?
I will give the boring answer as an information security manager, and I will say, like, stakeholders, you got to get buy-in from top-level management to support programs, because you have to start with the policy, because once you have policies, then you can really start the real challenge, which is, again, Rule touched on a culture. You have to ingrain this kind of like data-centric mindset of like thinking before you act, before you overshare data, as Rule mentioned as well. So those, I think, are the main things, like policy and the underlying culture that goes with that.
Yeah. Mark or Ronan, would you have any other recommendations for for insider threats specifically?
Yeah, a lot of what we're seeing at the moment is kind of accidental stuff. The law of unintended consequences. Again, the most common searched for thing on a company GPT is what's the CEO salary, for example, right? And
what is your salary?
Yeah, you're in a startup, not huge. It's really thinking through before you let any of the generative AI at your data, just thinking through what you have and if you need it and should it have access and so on.
Ronan, do you think like that is that insider threat, like, is that the kind of most common sort of stuff that you see at the moment, or like in terms of the threats facing companies in terms of data security around AI and stuff, like what do you think are the biggest things people need to be thinking about?
There was a lady spoke earlier and they had a ransomware attack, and the biggest issue is when you've had a ransomware attack or you've had any type of attack, the natural question is, what did they get? What did they take? Is it regulated content? Is it intellectual property? How much damage has been done? And the truth is, I don't think I've ever seen, unless it's a database, right, which is kind of cut and dried to a degree. In most cases, people are left scratching their heads trying to figure out what did they actually get and where's it gone. And the cost and the consequences of that are pretty profound. So she gave a very good quote. What was it, John F. Kennedy? You fix the roof when it's sunny. I thought that actually really resonated with me. People don't know what data they have because of data proliferation. That's been accelerated by the use of generative AI, which is spitting out data constantly. Some of that data is data which is not just, writing poems or writing better emails. If it's using an internal GPT like Copilot, it could be very sensitive information around IP or important financial documentation. So that stuff is doubling up at a huge rate. There's a huge amount of shadow data that introduces risk, and then you either have that either gets exposed through stupidity or you get hacked. So data is a problem.
Data is a problem. Folks, we will have time to take one or two questions from the audience if anybody wants to start thinking. I've one kind of final question for you, which I'll start with you, Robert. What's the scariest thing you've seen an AI do or be involved in, or what was the one that you thought, yeah, I'm living in a science fiction movie here now?
Of course, like the one that always sticks out to me is like very boring by today's standard, because as Ronan said, like the rate of progress is phenomenal, but still the one that like blew me away was my father likes to paint. He took it up after he retired, and he drew his painting, And I remember just going to Dali at the time and like describing what I wanted, and almost an identical replica of what my father had painted. These old boats, like they were kind of like rotting away, if you mean, in a field. I was just like, wow, it's like, this is not a good time to be an artist. You know, because yeah, like you can only imagine, and that was like day one, if you mean, and now we're day what, 600? Yeah. And it's like, we're only at the very bottom of that curve that is like, that is.
It is. It's
off.
funny how, you know, even we're all sitting here today, and like while we're on stage, the game could be changing. You know?
Yes.
Mark, what's the? I mean, we'll broaden out. What's the most interesting or / scary thing you've seen, you know, from an AI perspective?
There's so much. The one that always gives me a kick is Udio or Udio, where you can put in, I want an Irish music song, sang in whatever tone and whatever, and write the lyrics and just publish the song, right? So that's really worth checking out. Just today, in terms of scary, I got a whole sequence of WhatsApps from a trusted partner. Someone masquerading as a trusted partner and give you a call, blah, blah. I said I can't talk, and I knew it was phishing, and they called me. And someone at the other side had sounded like this person. They'd obviously recorded their voice off of YouTube and started a conversation.
Wow.
Conversation, answer, another conversation, follow-up. It was able to understand the talk track. And that was quite frightening. And I'd imagine if I hadn't been immersed in what I'm doing, it'd be very easy to get taken in by that.
Absolutely. Ronan, any final?
I'm doing this 20 years, DC. There's not much I haven't seen in terms of scary stuff. What happened to Mark this morning did scare me, because I was in the middle of an interview to Sunday Business Post, and Mark started texting me copies of what was happening. So it took us a few minutes to figure out if that was real or not. So that definitely gave me a bit of a fright. But yeah, look, I mean, one thing about cyber is that whenever you get caught up in a breach and you see either someone's livelihood being destroyed or their personal life being destroyed as a consequence of a breach, I think in their own right, every single one of them is literally terrifying and actually quite depressing.
Yeah, can be. Have we any questions from the audience?
No question about AI at all.
They're all experts. There's a gentleman down there.
Hi, name's Vittorio Leonardi. So how far along is it before militaries do something really stupid and actually weaponize AI? Have it start picking targets, using their data sets to start taking people out?
Well, I think AI has been weaponized already in drones. I mean, you've got models now that are making decisions about what to hit and what not to hit. I guess you could argue the toss of the coin. Sometimes they might be actually better than the human beings that are driving those drones. I mean, I haven't seen the figures to substantiate which one is actually better in terms of who kills more innocent people or not. But it's definitely a very scary concept that using AI for weaponization. I think drones is probably the most obvious one, unless you guys have another idea of.
I think you see a lot of talk actually in the VC industry at the moment. You see a lot of talk of, a lot of funds are getting into dual use technologies where somebody builds something like we have a number of investments in computer vision in particular. And actually, every single time you come up with a conversation about computer vision, it's very easy to see how, AI-powered computer vision has multiple military applications. Now, we haven't gone down that road, or we wouldn't go down that road.
And I guess just a fair point.
Yep.
I mean, does the data suggest that kills more innocent people, or does the guy who's controlling the joystick kill more innocent people? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
So I suppose the real question, I mean, when ChatGPT launched, I don't know about everybody else, but the first thing that shot through my mind is, so this is how Skynet starts.
This is how Skynet built. Yeah. It does come up a lot when you're an AI only VC investor. You do get called Skynet Ventures quite a lot, But it is true that the gap between safety and not safety is probably a lot thinner than any of us would be very comfortable with. Thank you very much, sir. We have another question here.
Yeah. So for startups that are trying to innovate and really put themselves as AI first, what advice would you have for them to put their customers' minds at ease about how their data is being handled and how it is being integrated with those systems?
So when you think about AI, you have your large language models, you've got your RAG, your retrieval augmented generation, you've got your small language models, you've got models which are public, you've got models which are private, and then you've got the compute that's needed to run them, and you've got the data that's needed to power them. There's a whole sequence of different security considerations which underpin all of those different aspects. We typically break it down into kind of 4 pillars, which are black box, bias, governance, and guardrails, which Mark touched on. And each one of those is a conversation in its own right. What does the black box do? How does it make decisions? What type of algorithms are running in the background? What type of bias does it have? Does it have bias that an organization, if they're procuring it, are in agreement with the bias, or are they in disagreement with it? You've seen a lot of scandal in the US, let's say, about AI going woke, let's say, the Black Pope and all that sort of stuff. What type of guardrails are there? So if it hallucinates and makes mistakes, how do you, what type of system card is in the background protecting it, and so that the organization understands what's going on. So there's those different types of considerations, which are all valid questions that get asked, and companies will address that in different ways, from giving them private AI to giving them, just giving them public or large language models which are shared, but they don't have the same type of controls around them. But it's a complex question. It's a question that myself and Mark have spent many years working with customers to try and show them a capability that brings their minds to ease on how you deliver that into their organization. And especially when it's touching enterprise data, it becomes super important.
Folks, we could definitely sit here and talk about this one all day. And I guarantee you now, as Jonathan lies in his bed bug hotel tonight, he'll be watching Terminator 2 probably. So again, thanks to my panel for the discussion. I'm sure this is the conversation that'll be continuing even into next year's convention. So thanks very much, Ronan, Mark, and Robert.
Thanks. Thank you.